So I just recently finished watching the first season of Eden Zero, and I gotta say, I'm surprised at how good this series was. Going into it, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but now I'm glad that I watched it. And if you're unfamiliar with Eden Zero, it's made by Hiro Mashima, who is the same guy that made Fairy Tail. And I know Fairy Tail is a very divisive series, you either love it or hate it. But I actually don't have anything against Fairy Tail. I saw the first episode when I was 13, and thought the dub was kinda cringe, so I turned it off only 10 minutes into the first episode. So I didn't go into Eden Zero with any bias because I hate Fairy Tail or anything, and I wanted you to know that this is a review free from bias because it's coming from someone who doesn't really have an opinion on Fairy Tail. So now, what exactly is Eden Zero about? Well, it follows a boy named Shiki, who for all his life has lived on the planet Granbell, that's inhabited only by robots. And he's the first human to come to this planet in 100 years. That is, until a girl named Rebecca lands on the planet with her cat friend Happy, with the goal to make rad videos for their B-Cube channel. And the two of them end up meeting and becoming friends with Shiki, but due to some unfortunate circumstances, they are forced to leave the planet with Shiki. And from there, they set off on an adventure, so that Rebecca can make rad videos, while Shiki tries to make 100 friends. And while they're at it, search for the legendary goddess named Mother, who is said to grant anyone who finds her any wish. So Eden Zero, right away within the first few episodes, it reminded me a lot of Dragon Ball, and that's a good thing. The original Dragon Ball, not Z or anything after that, has the characters going on a fun adventure, and Goku went on the adventure just because he could. He didn't have some lofty goal like becoming the Hokage or the King of the Pirates. He just went because he could, and because it was fun to go adventuring and make lots of friends along the way. So it feels kind of refreshing having a main character like Shiki, who is just going on an adventure because he can, and because it's fun. Now, I'll admit that at times Shiki can be pretty corny with how overly positive he is, and how he always wants to make new friends, but as much as it can get corny, I couldn't help but smile and just have a good time while watching. Shiki is one of those protagonists where his positivity becomes infectious. Kinda like Luffy, Naruto, or insert positive shonen protagonist, Shiki is just so genuine. Like, you can tell that he really means it when he says he wants to make 100 friends. And usually when a character is overly positive, I think they can be kind of annoying. But for some reason, Shiki doesn't come off as annoying. Now, I know other people may find him really annoying, but in my opinion, I think Shiki is a great character. He also has one of the coolest powers I've seen in all of anime. Well, technically it's an item that gives him cool powers. So in this anime, the power system is something called Ether Gear, which gives the users some kind of unique ability, like being able to make swords or being able to upgrade and repair mechanical things. In Shiki's case, his Ether Gear lets him control gravity, and it makes for some really great and exciting fights, where Shiki is flying all over the place while fighting. Like, 1 second he'll be running along a wall, and the next second he'll be falling sideways towards an enemy. And it's a power that works really well with a shonen type protagonist, and an action heavy anime, since it's such a cool ability for fighting. And I'm curious to see how this ability evolves, because in this first season, we get to see Shiki use a lot of his power during one specific fight, and it's really cool. I won't go into spoilers, but based on what I saw in that fight, I feel like we may see some transformations from Shiki some point down the line, which I am so on board for. Now, in terms of the other characters, you have Rebecca, who I like, but it is pretty cringy how she always talks about making a rad vid for B-Cube. Like, as someone who makes YouTube videos themselves, I get that going on an adventure through space to find a goddess who can grant you any wish would make for some pretty damn good content, but just because I understand how Rebecca feels, that doesn't change the fact that it's pretty cringy having an anime character talk about how they need to make rad vids so they can get more subs on their channel. But besides that, I think she's a good character, and I think it's kind of funny that whenever she fights someone, she calls them duckies for some reason. And then you also have Happy, who is pretty much the same character from Fairy Tail. They have the same name, look the same, and are even voiced by the same voice actress, which I actually don't have a problem with. I mean, if Mashima wants to put a character from his previous series into his new series, I don't have a problem with that. And I also really like Happy. He's mostly there to be a cute pet and to turn into guns for Rebecca to use because he's a robot cat, which is pretty cool, and I'm glad that he does turn into guns because I feel like he would be pretty useless if he didn't do that. So I'm glad he's not just a cute cat that doesn't contribute anything to the team. And then of course, as they go on their journey, they meet new people to join their crew. You got Weiss, who has the ability I mentioned earlier that basically lets him create and upgrade mechanical stuff, so he can create guns and upgrade their spaceship or repair anything that breaks. Think of him like a mechanic, but he uses his power to make and repair things instead of tools. There's also some really interesting stuff to his character, but I would get into spoilers if I were to talk about it, so I'll just say that it has to do with this creature that is in space, that no one knows why it does this, but it goes around and does something bad to different planets. I really like the ideas that are explored with this creature, and it does have something to do with Weiss, but I don't want to spoil it, so I'll just leave it at that. Another person who joins the crew is a robot named E.M. Pino, who I'm sure you can already guess can use an EMP, but has to be careful where she uses it because it turns off any ether gear nearby as well. So if she uses it while Shiki is flying through the air, he'll just fall. And I really like her. They do some interesting things with her character and kind of explore her humanity with showing her how sometimes, even if something seems like the logical way to do something, it might not be the right thing. And even though they don't explore this a whole lot, I think they will in later seasons. And I'm interested to see how she develops as a character. Also, speaking of robots, there's another robot that gets introduced named Witch, who was a crewmate to Shiki's grandfather, who is not his real grandfather, it's just the person who raised him, but the person who raised him happened to be the demon lord Ziggy, who rules over everything in that galaxy. And Witch is a pretty good character. She's basically the person who takes care of the ship and pilots it, and her getting introduced made me more interested in Shiki's grandfather, because to Shiki, he was just the person who raised him and taught him how to use his ether gear, and when Shiki was little, he passed away. So Shiki never knew a whole lot about his grandfather, but through Witch, we get a better understanding of his grandfather. Now, the last character I'm going to talk about in this video might be my favorite female character, and her name is Homura. And she's pretty cool. She has an ether gear that lets her make this pretty cool looking sword. She's only been in a few episodes, but from what I've seen, she might be my favorite female character, just because of how badass she is. And I'm also really curious to see if the sword she uses has any other special abilities, because so far it just seems like a normal sword, but I'm willing to bet she'll be able to do more cool things with it in the future. Now, I know that's kind of a lot of characters to introduce within the first season, or first core, but since it's on Netflix, it has a weird release schedule and they call it seasons, but that's besides the point. It's just a lot of characters introduced in a short amount of time, and usually that would bother me, but it does a good job with adding the characters with enough time apart from each of their introductions that it doesn't feel like too many are being introduced at once. And so far, this first season feels like the prologue, where they're getting all the characters together to go on this journey. Because where they're trying to go, they need to leave the Sakura cosmos, which is the galaxy that they're currently in. And once Witch gets introduced, she tells them that they need to find 3 other robots that used to be a part of Shiki's grandfather's crew, in order to get past these dragons that are guarding the exit to the Sakura cosmos. So the whole first season, this core and the one coming later on, I think is gathering up all the characters and then going on the big adventure with them. And I don't really mind that. If you get all the characters you need together and then take them on a journey, I think that's fine. And I'm really interested to see how this crew grows as they go on this journey, and to see what's in store for them in the other galaxies out there. Also, one thing that I really like is that I feel like Eden Zero is focusing on the journey rather than the destination. Because some of the characters don't have the greatest motivations to want to go on this journey, like Rebecca just wants to go so she can get lots of views on her videos, but I feel like the message it's trying to get across is that it doesn't matter the reason, as long as you have fun with your friends on this journey. That's all that matters, and I really like that. And overall, I had a really good time with this first season. It surprised me how much I ended up enjoying it. I didn't go into it with super low expectations or anything, but I ended up enjoying it way more than I thought I would. And I'd like to say to anyone who hates Fairy Tail that you should give this anime a chance and try to go into Eden Zero with an open mind. Because I feel like I was able to really enjoy this series because I went into it with an open mind since I don't have anything against Fairy Tail. And I know you may hate Fairy Tail and still hate Eden Zero, but I believe it is worth giving a shot and not just writing it off because you don't like another series that Mashima made. And who knows, maybe you'll end up really enjoying Eden Zero. And if you did already see Eden Zero, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. How are you feeling about this first season? Did you love it or did you hate it? Or are you just reading the manga instead? Whatever you're feeling, I'd love to have a discussion in the comments about this first season or first core of Eden Zero. And if you enjoyed this video, hitting the subscribe button and liking the video would help me out a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. So I'll see you all next time in my next video.